Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm always a bit nervous when I do innovation speeches and I come up with bits of paper in my hand, because I'm not sure it's the most digital innovation that I've got, but I tend to keep it. I also want to thank Mark for not ruining my surname, which many of my British colleagues have done, so I appreciate that. And also thank you for not inviting me to the 3 bar last night, so that's really, really good. What I'd like to do today is just give you an overview of CVG Hub, my new base, which I've been there since March. I've been in the US for about 7 years, so I'm enjoying it. I love this city. I was very happy to move back from Florida. As you can tell from my inability to get the sun, Florida was a tough state for me to live in, so happy to be back in the Queen City. I apologize for bringing a British summer for you as well, so it's not been great. But what I'll do is I'll do a quick overview of Cincinnati Hub, and then I'll talk a little bit about our innovation and what we do. I'm going to concentrate on the people on the innovation side rather than some of the technology. Obviously, there's certain things I can't share with you from a proprietary information side, but I'm happy to take any questions at the end about anything that you want to know more about. So Cincinnati Hub is one of 3 global hubs for DHL Express. We're situated in Leipzig, Germany, and Hong Kong. Cincinnati is the second largest hub for DHL. We run through about 545,000 pieces every day and every night. We actually run nearly 24/7 now. Many of you probably know that we're in a partnership with Amazon. We provide a service for them during the day. We've invested over $281 million in the facility. That's not the aeroplanes, that's just the facility at Cincinnati Hub, and we continue to invest, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. We have about 4,500 people that work in that building. We're actually out of space with office, so we're just moving to the CV2 building, we're calling it. It's where the airline offices are, so where Candace and her team are. We're taking the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor there, so we'll move people out as we continue to grow. And our main hub for DHL Express is in Leipzig, Germany, which obviously services all around the globe. That's an impressive facility that I had the pleasure of being out in July. It's a massive, massive facility with a lot of innovation that we're hoping that we can bring some of that back to our hub as well. So we're part of this global network. It's how we connect our material, how we put everything through the hub. I mean, I'm talking to logistics, so I don't need to go too much into it. We have the hub network of different flights. We run about 46 flights across both the US and across the world out of Cincinnati. We go as far down as China and Australia, and then we intersect to about 30, 40 different destinations in the US using a variety of aircraft from the 777s. Some of you may have seen the announcement about DHL investing in 14 new 777s. That's to replace our older fleet and bring different efficiencies with those bigger aircraft, which are also cheaper on fuel and better for the environment as well, which is important to us. In the business, we also have what we call QCC, which is our Quality Control Center, and that allows us to monitor all the shipments and provide real-life updates for our customers, which is hugely important for us. And that's just the overview. My network planning group love to give me maps in the hope that I can learn the states of America. But that's really where we fly to around the US, all the way down to San Juan as well. We're always fortunate in some ways that when our employees are in distress, like they were down there after the hurricane, that we were able to get supplies immediately into them. We run operations in Central and South America, so when Ecuador had the earthquake a few years ago, the first relief flights in were our pilots for DHL. So we do an awful lot of work in 3rd world countries. We have a disaster response team that works with the authorities to provide that support. It's incredibly important for Frank Appel, the head of Deutsche Post DHL, and for Ken Allen, the CEO of DHL, that we give back to our community. So it's definitely something that is worth looking into if you find the time. It's our DRT team. It's an amazing group of volunteers who will fly to these areas and take over the logistics for different charities, etc. And then this is the big, what we call our Intercom Flights. This provides us our service to the Far East, into Europe, and across down into the Americas. CVG, about 90% of the material for DHL Express comes into Cincinnati at night. So hugely important to us. And from there we can just feed the rest of the US. We actually just put a new route on which will fly material direct from the Far East into JFK as well, and that really will provide a little bit more, be able to get our shipments to our customers a lot earlier than we're currently doing in JFK, and provide that competitive advantage, which is important to us. So we have about 3 or 4 big intercon flights. China and the Far East has been this massive growth for all of us. Last year, does everybody remember the fidget spinners? The things, yeah. I apologize, we brought most of them in, I believe. I didn't know what they were until we realized how much we were getting from China, and our volume surged, and we couldn't work it out. We were like, where's this surge come from? And it was for all the kids who can't. Well, I think it was for the adults as well. We have a few of them on my desk just to keep me entertained. So, but yeah, it's amazing, and I think that talks about the e-commerce, that a simple idea just exploded, and suddenly the demand, the demand was high. We shipped it in, and I think nowadays nobody wants them now. But at that time, it was just so important to the marketplace. So I talked about the $281 million. I think it's well documented that we moved back from Wilmington to Cincinnati. Cincinnati was always the kind of home for DHL Express. We were based at Cbg Airport for a long time before we relocated to Wilmington. When we made the decision to pull out of the domestic market, we actually had a hub ready to go in CVG. So we refurbed it, and that started in 2009, July, with a $19 million investment to get it up and running and ready to go. And then during that time, we've been able to expand our operation, increase our throughput of material, increase the number of flights that we now handle, and up until 2016, it's about a $281 million investment. We're still investing now. I was just talking to Milan. It's like one of the investments now is more around innovation rather than buildings, looking for that kind of improvement in technology within the warehousing. I think all of us who work in logistics know that there's a certain manual part of the job, and it's trying to make that job easier for our people. The video clip that we watched around Ohio and the warehouse jobs is both a good thing for me, but also a concern for me as we try and find the right workforce. And I'm sure many of us in this room are also having questions around that workforce. Where do we find them from? Not just the skilled professionals, but also the people who are actually going to move the box. And it's a challenge for us. I think it's a challenge for the industry as well. And while we get into the cost of labor, how do we find the right people? How do we keep our people as well? I think, my experience within the US talks to me about the need to keep our people more than just keep finding new people. So it's definitely a challenge for us in DHL, and I think it's a challenge for other parts of the logistics company, having colleagues in FedEx and UPS as well. Not colleagues, I should say, friends. And now I want to talk about innovation and talk about what we do in DHL. We decided a couple of years ago, we're a large organization. We call it the mothership, so everything around the mothership is our kind of center in Bonn. What we decided is, what can we do locally to innovate? Rather than dealing with the bureaucracies of a large organization, how do we innovate locally? And more importantly, how do we get our people involved? And to do that, we brainstormed, we brought in a consultant, brainstormed ideas, and we came up with the BRAIN group. I've had to write down what the acronym means because I've been told about 15 times, but I can never quite remember it. But the BRAIN group is our way of innovating with our people. It stands for Business Requirements Addressing Innovation. I know it's very catchy. We spent a long time coming up with it. I think we just like the word brain and trying to work the acronym back. DHL is a company, as I'm sure most logistics companies are, a company full of acronyms, right? So we're not allowed to call anything just by its proper name. But brain is really that innovation platform that will help create the increased value, mainly for our customers, but also for our employees. And the great thing about brain is it's not coming from the top leadership, it's coming from the people that do the jobs. We looked for volunteers in our business functions across not just in operations, but in HR, in finance, in IT, and brought them together and said, look, what can we do to make life better for you and make life better for our customers? Not everything is about technology. Some of it is simple stuff that we do, but I'll talk and touch on a little bit of the technology that we do and the process that we go through, because it's quick. And that was the key thing for us with Brain, is that it couldn't be something that would take 18 months to bring to fruition. It had to be a quick response. It was small investments that we could easily approve at a certain level without getting too tied up in finance. So most of the ideas were put into prototype. If it works, then we move forward on it. And some of the stuff that we're doing is really, the smaller companies, you see how they do it. We saw years ago how marketplaces just use their iPhone for everything, and yet our couriers would go out with a belt like Batman's utility belt with all this weight carrying them down, and now they just carry one phone which does everything, which when you think back to what we've seen in the industry, all that technology and all that advancement, A lot of it's driven by small business, and we've got to catch up with them, and we've got to stay flexible with them. It's the biggest challenge, I think, for a large organization, to be flexible and to really come up with those groundbreaking ideas, and that's where we came up with Brain. And it's really about just connecting those business requirements with technology to improve customers' lives and to add value. So with regards to that, I want to just talk through what it looks like, the three levels of three looks in innovation: evolutionary, out of the box, and new box. When you consider new box, we look at companies like Uber, and I understand you had Uber Freight yesterday talking to you. I'm sorry I missed that, because I think companies like Uber are the disruptors of the business, right? But they're also people that we've got to stay close to, because they disrupt it for a reason. It's a little bit like the taxi cab industry. If we think back 5-6 years ago, getting a cab in Cincinnati was a hit and miss thing, right? And you didn't know what the state of the car was going to be, and you didn't know when it was going to come. Now we just either click Uber or Lyft, right? And we're straight there. They're the people that have been innovating, and I think when we look at those companies, they're very flexible in their approach, right? Very different to a more standardized business like DHL. So we have 4 pillars in DHL. It starts with motivated people. We believe that if we get the right people, we get them trained, and we get them engaged with the company, that will lead to great service quality. So we provide a high level of service to our customers. By doing the high level of service, we provide loyal customers, and that goes to a profitable network, so we make the money, and then we reinvest through. It's been our strategy for about nearly 10 years, and it's a simple strategy. The person, Ken Allen, who's the CEO of DHL Express, is a Yorkshireman. I don't know what the equivalent of a Yorkshireman is in America, but he's very much says it as he sees it. So he believes we don't need lots of strategies, we just need one. And if you don't know what it is, he'll tell you what it is. So all of our people know exactly what that strategy is. And the most important thing for us is the first one, which is the motivated people. Get that right, get them engaged, and then you can start to move towards the great service quality. So we look at that, we look at the motivated people. We want us to be a great place to work. In my bio notes, it is about making us the employer of choice in Northern Kentucky. There's a massive amount of choice for people now to go anywhere they want. And with the innovation coming with the idea that you can just click a shift that you want on a phone to work, we need to make people want to stay and work for DHL Express. Last weekend, I had the pleasure of taking 14,000 people from DHL Express to Kings Island. I say pleasure because I don't like roller coasters, but it was an amazing event that we did for our family day, and it's another way of like trying to get our people to see what we do for them and how we engage with them. So from a motivated people, we go to the great service quality, and I'll talk about some of the things we're doing, and it's simple stuff, right? I don't know how many of you got the Amazon Alexa or Siri. I can't use Siri because of my accent. Every time I ask it something, I get something completely different, so I've given up with it. But Alexa we use. So the Alexa idea is like, we just want to track a parcel with DHL, so track my package. You can say that, it bounces back, you put the airway bill in, and it will give you an update on it. It's the things that we need to do, right? People don't always want to go on a website and look for things. It's very much a changing world. And Amazon is, we were going to use Siri, but from what I understand, Amazon was much more flexible for us to play with their system a little bit than Apple, who were quite protective, and rightly so, right? And then we are about trying to find that solution for our customer. How do we get something that makes it easier for a customer? Because if we don't do that, then the idea is not worth running with. We put the customer at the heart of everything we do in DHL Express. And then finally, we want it to reduce cost, not reduce headcount, but reduce cost, and we want to make it more efficient. We want to give our employees the work-life balance. All of us, I'm sure, in the room have an Apple phone, a Samsung, there are other devices, but we're all on email 24/7 when you think about it. You know, the old BlackBerry with the red light that used to flash was probably more addictive than I think other things, right? We'd all see the red light and want it. What we want to do is try and take our people and give them a bit more work-life balance so they can switch off when they're out of the job. When they're out of work, I should say. And then this is how the brain journey works. It's quick, as you can see. So the vision, what's the idea about making something simple for the company? We take 1 or 2 weeks to come up with that. They have a brain group that come together once a month, and they're from all over the US. They come in, they meet. We've invested in their time, so we give them time out to do the projects to make themselves really effective. Then we look at the feasibility of it. Not every idea is a good idea. I know we always say there's no bad ideas, but I think all of us in the room know there's lots of bad ideas, right? So, but we look at the feasibility of it. Can it really work? Is it going to add value? And then we do a prototype and build it. And then we get the brain guys who came up with the idea to present to the top management board. It's a little bit like Shark Tank. We did have to tone our management board down a little bit because they were a little bit over the top with their criticism. But what it does is it means that the person's pitching the idea to the business to say, hey, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to invest in. And then if we like it, we go to the final product. And within about 2 to 4 months, we see it coming in. And it's around everything. It's around making it easier for our customers to see their bills, to find where their shipments are. There's so many different ideas that we're trying to do. And I think as a business, what we're seeing is in each different function, Deutsche Post DHL has 4 main functions: PEP, which is the e-commerce side. We've got supply chain, which I know has a big footprint in Columbus. There's ourselves and there's global forwarding as well. And we're all kind of different in our approaches, and what we try and do is do certain things that suit our different areas. So DHL Express is about overnight, quick speed. We do partner with each part of the DHL family, and when we see good ideas, we kind of are quick to borrow or steal them or grab them from them. So, but we love this idea. We love the way it brings ideas, and it's simple stuff and stuff that we're seeing elsewhere that we've got to bring into us, like the glasses that you can do the pick to light, so you can see when a shipment is cleared. So rather than scanning it, you just look at it and it goes green or red, right? Some of this stuff's already out there, but for us, we're bringing it into DHL and moving forward with it. And this is really just talks about the technology that we're using and then talks about the value that it is. So whether it's augmented reality, and even in training, we're using virtual reality in the training, where you can lift the box and put the box in a container. Now you don't need to have a container and a box, you just need a couple of joysticks. And the way we made it, it's like gamification, which is you pick up the box. If you load it properly, you get 20 points. If you load it not properly, you get minus 10. If you throw the box, which is what I did just to see if it worked, you get minus 500. And it creates excitement for our employees. They want to see it. You know, we want to fly our employees all around the world to see all our different hubs, but we can't do it. But now you can. You just put a pair of 3D goggles on their head. They can see our Leipzig hub, they can see our Cincinnati hub, and they can see our Hong Kong hub. And the scary thing is when you put those goggles on, you are literally put on the RAM in Hong Kong. You are standing there and you see the airplane go past you, and you turn around and it's there, the 747. It's amazing what we can do with technology to make life better for our people, whether it's through engagement or whether it's through training opportunities. I think the training opportunities mean you no longer need a big training room. You can just do it in a small area. And the new workforce that's coming are very, very au fait with all this technology. And I think that's probably one point I would raise, is that we do have an aging workforce as well. And while we get excited about bringing technology, we also have to take into account what does that mean for our people as well. When we changed our scanners and we made the scanners smaller, we thought it was great because it was lighter. I was in JFK. New Yorkers are not shy in giving you feedback. And you know, I said to this lady, you know, she's been with us 25 years, do you like the new scanner? I now know not to ask her, but the feedback was relevant because her feedback was like, look, I get that it's great and it's an advancement, but I can't use it. The screen's too small or the keyboard's too, you know, I now have to take my gloves off to use the keyboard. So things that we didn't think about, and that's why we brought Brain in, to get those people their input on it, because there's no point in me putting something in that I think's amazing if the employee's never going to use it. So that's the Alexa, that's the example of it. It's just, where's my shipment? It's kind of cool. You know, we tried it. We're going to try and get it with Siri as well. It's not anything that's completely groundbreaking, but it's just a small idea of what we're doing. You know, we're modernizing our fleet of trucks, so we're going to more electric vehicles. You've seen the announcement about the 777s. This was just more about what we do locally. And that's it, really. So I'll take any questions. Oh, right at the back. Thank you. Well, I didn't hear the... Oh, it was yeah, so I don't have a picture of it. So this is just, you put on a pair of glasses like the Google glasses. And so right now, the way it works is you have freight in a bonded area. Most of us are scanning it and then reading it on a scanner, and then seeing whether it's cleared or not. This would be, look at the box. If the box was cleared, it would be green, so you can just pick it and take it out. Does that answer the... Just makes life a little bit quicker. So rather than me scanning, looking, scanning, it's just look up, green, take it. It's about improving it. Now you have to work with the local authorities on that, but it's an immediate, quick way of clearing out your bonded warehouse. You know, we have, you know, on average about 5,000 shipments in there a night being held for various reasons for clearance. If we can make that a quicker process for our employees, it's perfect. Thank you.
Just wanted you to talk a little bit about access to workforce, if you could. We hear a lot about that, particularly at this conference. Just like to get your thoughts on that as it relates to CVG.
Yeah, so when I first came to the US, I was head of HR for CVG Hub, and it took me a long time to get my head around the turnover within logistics in the US, and certainly within the big players. I think the challenge for us is how do you keep up with the market and the cost of it, because you know, when we get into our peak season, which we're all heading towards, we see people who, you know, we'll see the costs go up. We'll see the adverts from companies saying, I'll pay you $17 an hour, I'll pay you $18, $19, $20. And I think as an organization, we've got to be careful about that, because all our costs are going up. I think for me, the hardest thing is trying to understand why people just leave, right? So, you know, I see people who just, they come to work for 2 weeks and then we don't see them again. And it's a vicious cycle, because you keep replacing them and you never really have the time to dig into why they left. And then, you know, when we reach out to them, you know, some of them don't reply. You get like, I just didn't like it. You know, we are a third shift environment, so we figured it was that, but actually when we brought in the daytime sort, the turnover didn't really improve as much as we thought it would. So I think that the challenge is, this is a fairly small area for people. So it's great that the logistics side's growing, but we've got, you know, Amazon, right? And they're not just at the airport, but in their fulfillment centers all around us. There's FedEx, there's UPS, there's DHL as well. There's eBay, right? There's a lot of demand for our people. What I think we've got to do as a business, what we have to do, and I think what other businesses have to do, is you've got to put your arms around your people and you've got to keep them. And you've got to invest in it. I have a friend of mine who works for Galleria, the candy company. He has the same issue. You know, his turnover of the warehouse worker, and they've invested in really selling their benefits to their organization. But I am nervous about it, because I'm pretty sure I can speak for everyone, is that we see the people who leave, then they come back, and they leave again. And like, how many strikes do you give people before you say they're not going to be a good hire? I think you see similar things in customer service call centers. You see that go around. We've definitely seen that. We have a base out in Phoenix, and we had the same issue. And there we put in a program that was really addressing that retention. I think I brought my new director of ramp is a gentleman who was down in Delta in Atlanta, but also worked in one of the companies that provides food services to the airlines. And his retention was at 70%, which is actually pretty high. And he was paying minimum wage. And I asked him what it was, and he said it's just, you know, the over-in-communication and your arms around them, reminding your people why they work there, reminding them of the benefits. I think we do a great job at the beginning. We give them all this information, and then 3 months later, most of them have forgot the information that we told them about why they join us. But I think for us to continue to grow in this area, in this tri-state area, we've got to look at that. We've got to look at, how do we find people? How do we get people out of school that want to come and work for us? That's the thing, and I think we've got to do as a business and as an industry, we've got to get into the schools more and more, so that they understand that logistics is, you know, it's a great career. And I think, you know, when I look at the people in DHL who've been successful, nearly every one of them has joined DHL as an entry-level position. And I don't know many industries. I think logistics is quite unique in, you can enter as a courier. The guy who runs DHL Express for the Americas, Mike Parrier, was a courier for TNT, right? And there's 101 different stories like that. I started as a part-time customs entry writer in East Midlands in the UK. And I think logistics allows you to move quite quickly through it. So, you know, I think for me, the biggest challenge is like, can we keep finding them? But the bigger challenge is, once you get them, can you keep them? Does that? Thank you. Great question.
Hi, my name is Tommy Arnold, and I work with the Ohio Department of Transportation. And you know, one of our big goals is to try to pull our employees, our staff, all of our teams together to become one ODOT. And you know, we're spread across 88 counties, and in some cases we have multiple facilities in each county. And I find your brain, you know, the brain concept that you have really interesting. And I wonder, is there any opportunity, or have you seen that as a way to engage employees from all around the world? Because you've got these 3 hubs, and I'm sure other facilities. Is there any avenue that brain program opens up dialogue between offices around the globe?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. There's a couple of things that we do. So we're actually running what we call a RAPID. Please don't ask me what RAPID stands for because I don't know that acronym. But we're running this program called RAPID for our supervisors, and we're taking supervisors from the global hubs, from CVG, Leipzig, and from Hong Kong, and we're moving about 15 of them around so they get to see what goes on in other hubs. It's really the hardest thing to do is how do you innovate, but I'm actually tonight being my hub because we're about to upgrade our system to a brand new system, and supporting us is people from about 25 different countries. So we've flown them in. I mean, we are privileged that we can do that as a large organization, right? That's the fortunate thing for us. But I think the more you can, whether you can use technology to do it, because, you know, things like Skype, FaceTime, etc., they're great, but they're not the same as the kind of off comments that you get. You know, when you get a group of people face to face, there's a lot more done off the meeting than in the meeting, right? I think we all know. I'm sure Mark did a lot of business last night in the bar. But I think, you know, if you look at that, that's what we can do. So yeah, it's probably the biggest challenge. What we also do within DHL in the 3 different regions is we actually run a big sport event. So this year in Orlando, we took about 1,500 people to a soccer event from all around the Americas. Apart from anything else, it gave everybody a lot of passion. Unfortunately, Brazil won, so it was a very traditional soccer event. And I was the manager of the US, and we lost to Argentina, which anybody who knows anything about football is what England do every World Cup. So, but it was just a great way to pull people together. But what you also got was people doing the sidebar conversations. Like suddenly, this is, so you know, you're being introduced, oh, this is the guy from Panama Hub. So he and I would go off and talk about what we can do. So even though it was a social event, I don't think you can underplay how important it is that brings a lot of business people together. So the more you can do it, the better. If you can't do it, I think we've all been bored to death on conference calls. My advice is that, you know, they should be short and sweet, and if you can do video calling, it's a lot better. It does, because you see face to face, but I genuinely believe the investment to travel and meet people is worth it. I know the finance people would say it isn't, and I get that, but the reality is, you know, you do more, sometimes you do more by the coffee than you do by the table, and to me, you know, we're always arguing with our finance people about our travel and entertainment. But we also recognize the US board that I was part of, they travel around every month to a different part of the business so that they can meet the people. Because again, your people want to see your leaders, right? They want access to them. And I think as an organization, that's the other thing I'd say is if you're a leader in that organization, there's nothing better than being out with the people, either whether it's moving a box with them or whether it's just pushing the containers on the ramp. That's the way you find truly what's happening in your organization. Thank you.
You mentioned that a lot of your investment in things now is on innovation rather than buildings and new structures and things. And I was wondering if some of those innovations are addressing some of your labor issues that you've got.
If my finance man's in the room, absolutely. Yes. The short answer is yes. What we're trying to do is look for ways of processing material in the building. So when you're processing, we process about 260,000 pieces, and the easiest parcel we'll ever move is the small letter, right? The stuff that gets a little bit bigger is the one that we're looking at. You know, how do you innovate? It's not conveyable, but it's not huge non-conveyable, so it doesn't need a forklift, but it's too big to go on our belts. So that's where we look for. At the moment, it's a very kind of far too manual process, so that's one of the innovations that we're looking for. The innovation around the pick to light, the green-red, is about saving time and efficiencies. And again, you know, while it won't put people out of work, it will mean that I'm less reliant on finding new people, which is key for us. And I think the other thing it does as well is people want to work for modern companies, you know. The Googles and the Apples and the Amazons are the kind of the companies that young people are looking for to come and join. And I think as an organization, logistics, you know, if you think about what we do as an organization, you know, it's pretty sexy when you think about how we connect the world, right? We don't think of it like that because we think about trucks and trains and boats and planes. But when you think about what we truly do, we do connect the world, right? And, you know, Ken Allen always says there's 4 things that connect the world. It's love, sport. There's another one, and he says the 4th one is logistics, right? And I think he's right. You know, I mean, when I work for logistics and I think about what we've done and what we've shipped around the world, I think we need to sell that more for us. But I think to go back to the question on innovation, yeah, if you can make it better for your people, but you can also bring those efficiencies in, whether it's throughput speed, whether it's just an aircraft that gets there quicker and is easier to unload. Some of the stuff that we're seeing is even, you know, I'm sure we've all got the cargo belts and belts for the straps for pags and containers in our warehouses. We had a guy in Leipzig came up with the idea how to self-wrap them. So you now don't have an employee doing it like this. You just put it in a machine and it does it. It's quicker, it's more efficient, it gets the job done. Those are the small innovation things that I think if we do, you know, just a machine to push the container, so I've not got 8 people pushing an 8-ton container. We've now got a machine that pushes it. There are investments, and the balance is always like, does the investment pay off against the return on investment with labor? But I think we also have to think, does it make our lives better for our people? And does it reduce that stress, especially, you know, aging workforce, right? People are working longer, and that is great, but at the same time, a lot of these jobs in warehouses and couriers and deliveries aren't easy jobs, right? And we're seeing the increase from business to business to consumer. So a lot of our people are now going up and down flights of stairs and in apartment blocks to get there and not leave the box because the customer's not home, etc. So I think we are looking, you know, now we don't just send out to a consumer, we send them a text, we contact them before we go out. Again, another way of driving an efficiency and making it better for our people. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Frank from the Tri-State Logistics Council, and being such an international business, I'm wondering if you could give some perspective or insights how you feel about the recent increase in trade disputes amongst many of the countries. Does it make you nervous, or how do you feel about that?
Well, as I'm British and we voted out of Europe, I've got to be a bit careful what I say. Yeah, look, I think from a DHL point of view, anything that keeps trade going and keeps that open is hugely important for us. But we are seeing an impact on the tariffs that are going up. We are seeing an impact on the duties that people are paying. Some of our customers are talking about paying 3-4 times as much duty as they did previously. So I think it's a little bit, it's still at the beginning of the stage of it, but I think we're seeing more of it. It's difficult to see where it ends, right? Because there will be, whatever you do for one, so if the US decides to tariff Europe, Europe's going to tariff the US. I think there's a fair bit of challenge coming within that. And also, you know, as an international company, Brexit is a huge event for us because we have a base in East Midlands in the UK that connects the US to Europe. Now, right now, that material rides into the UK and is cleared for Europe. No one, including the British, because I was there in the summer and they're clueless on what they're going to do, no one's quite sure what that means once they go into Brexit. It's so unnerving to see that change in a major market. So we've seen a bit of a softening in from Asia into the US, but not massive, but it's definitely there, and it's definitely a concern for us that we keep watching very, very closely. And it'll be interesting to see what it does for cost in the US as well. I think it's yeah, I mean, from our point of view, anything that keeps the trade doors open, you know, between Canada, Mexico, US to Canada is a hugely important lane for us, as I'm sure it is for many of you. But yeah, we are concerned. Awesome.
Well,
thank you.
I have a few questions.
Well, I'm available for a drink in the bar anytime, so yes.
Am I on? When you talk about workforce and we talk about keeping them and getting them, one of the issues that OKI is working on, I'm sure all the other people in this room are really concerned about, is how do you get people to work, the transportation? In other words, so how's that working out for you over there?
So we partnered with Tank.
Yes.
And that was an interesting acronym for me. But we partnered with Tank to get them to run a bus out to our hub every night. And we got them to run it from key points. So we went after a student population to try, because we give tuition reimbursement. So we targeted the area there up in UC, and they run buses into us every day on schedule for us. So we start. So it was really a partnership with them. We approached them to say we need a solution. Candace actually helped us with that relationship, and they now run to us every day and every night. They run all night for us as well because we have a nighttime operation. So that's one of the ways we did it. It's a tricky one, right? Because we try and encourage car sharing. We've not mastered that just yet. So, but definitely the Tank has helped a lot.
Nobody's mastered car sharing. But, and just one last question. Why Cincinnati? Why did DHL make this decision to put the hub in Cincinnati as opposed to New York, Chicago, wherever?
Okay, I can give you my perspective of it.
That's all we want.
This is what I believe is, I think we have a base in New York, we have a base in LA, we have a base in Chicago, but actually Cincinnati, at the airport of Cincinnati allowed us to have a large base at probably a much more controlled cost than flying into JFK or parking at JFK, trying to get slots into JFK. I think everybody's, some gentleman there shaking his head so he knows, right? So I think for us, the reason is twofold. One, I think it allows us just to spread across the US. So strategically, it's positioned. But the weather is pretty good, right? It's not, you're not getting the harsh winters of a Chicago. You know, it's, I know we had, and I say we, I wasn't here for the winter, but I know you had a bit of a tough winter this year, but you can still operate in it. I think that's hugely important for us. And also I think when we moved here, it was about the workforce, what was available for us, right? And also I believe as well, it's where we were based right from the beginning, so to come back here was a sensible decision. I think personally for me, I think it's a great city that's on the up, right? I think this area, you know, even in the 7-8 years I've been here, we've seen the improvements in the area and the growth, which is exciting. But I think the real reason is probably much more about it's central for the US. The weather's good for us from a point of view of running our aircraft around. And the other thing was that when we got there, we were kind of the big company on the airport. With Delta moving out, it allowed us to have a lot of space so we could continue to grow. If we'd been restricted, you know, when you go to LA, LAX or to JFK, you haven't got a lot of room to grow and not cost effectively. You know, you're going to pay a lot of money for real estate if you can find it. You know, LA airport that we've got a base at is notoriously difficult for us to find additional space to increase our warehousing. So that's probably the reason why.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colin Beynon.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Cheers. All right.
Well done.